The Indianapolis Motor Speedway's Brickyard 400 has delivered once again, showing us exactly why it's a crown jewel race on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. What's up, race fans, and welcome to the very first episode of After the Checkered Flag with Paige Johnson, where I'll be going over all things NASCAR Cup Series and occasionally some other motorsports. But with some million-dollar moves and winless streaks broken, we've got lots to talk about from this weekend's race, so let's get into it. First off, our pole winner, Chase Briscoe. He looked great at the start of the weekend, securing that pole position to become the first driver in NASCAR history to win pole at all 4 crown jewel races in the same season. So it was a big deal for the JGR team and for Chase to make history at his home racetrack. But as we know, it was a bit of a heartbreaker for the Indiana man. He looked great in the early stages, coming out on top in stage 1, but as the race went on, he fell back, which is not his fault entirely. Track position shuffled, tire strategies played out, and by the end, he just wasn't in it. Earlier in the weekend, he talked about what this win would mean for him, but unfortunately, he and the 19 team could not get it done this weekend. All right, let's move on to my guy, Kyle Larson, who came so close but couldn't close the deal. Everybody keeps talking about this slump that Kyle is in, which is fair. He has not been racing or placing where he typically does, and he's had a stretch where things just aren't looking like the Kyle that we know and love. Has he been having the best races of his life lately? No, but just like any other driver, he's going to have a few bad races here and there. He was fast on that Indy track, and it was looking like he had the chance to take over Bubba Wallace at the end, but with a late caution and a double overtime finish, Bubba was faster and Kyle just came up short. If he truly is in a slump, though, it's seeming like he's hopefully climbing out of there with a 4th place finish at Dover last weekend and a 2nd place finish at Indy this past weekend. Now, can Kyle get it done this weekend at Iowa? I hope so, because if I'm him, I'm sick of hearing people talking about my slump and how I'm coming up just a little too short. Now, before I get to our winner, let me touch on our $1 million winner, Ty Gibbs. Big props to Gibbs and his crew chief, Tyler Allen, for the early tire strategy. Pitting early while others stayed out was a bold move, but it paid off enough to keep him in the mix to win the $1 million. He was playing chess out there, and his strategy paid off because he walked away with $1 million this weekend. Which, by the way, I think this in-season challenge was a great addition to the NASCAR Cup Series schedule this year. I think that it brought in new fans, it kept old fans passionate. I loved seeing the social media beef and all the battles that went on, seeing the David and Goliath matchups, and watching the big dogs come down. I think it was great for the sport, and I think that NASCAR needs to keep it up. Lastly, of course, I need to talk about our winner, Bubba Wallace, and the 23 team at 2311. A streak of 100 races. 100 races winless. Finally broken at a crown jewel has got to be a good feeling for Bubba. And not only that, but he took himself all the way from the playoff bubble to securing himself a spot in the 2025 playoffs. Like I said before, it was looking a little rocky toward the end, a late caution, a couple of overtime restarts, and on top of all of that, you've got to hold off Kyle Larson, which is not an easy feat in itself, but nonetheless, he did it. It was genuinely his most clutch moment of the season, and I think that maybe this will reset the narrative of Bubba's season, but I still think he's got work to do. He was fast at Indy, and he needs to stay fast when the playoffs come around so he doesn't have an early round exit like some people predict. Well, those were my favorite big moments from Indy this past weekend. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of After the Checkered Flag with Paige Johnson, and I will see you next week after Iowa Speedway.